Hold on, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Marcos, for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. No problem.
So, I want to make you the host.
Okay.
Okay. Please go ahead to share your screen.
All right. Okay. Let me show this one here. Okay, so I went through all this. So yeah, so just to briefly review, so fixed units and fixed work, you don't need this unless you're using. Oh, we have, you should mute, you should mute yourself, everybody, please. Some noise in the background, okay. All right, so fixed unit, fixed work you don't need except for project server, right? So don't worry about that. You just keep your settings with fixed durations. So Microsoft Project won't change anything. All right, and again on the schedule tab under project options, your new tasks are effort driven. That should be unchecked. What do I mean by this? Effort-driven task. With a new task, you don't want to go to a fixed work situation. Remember, I just mentioned fixed work, right? So you want to uncheck that. If you use this, if you check mark this, Microsoft Project will think that you're trying to get things done faster, right? And it will mess up with your calculations. You don't want Microsoft Project to make changes to your activities, so make sure you uncheck this new tasks. New tasks are effort-driven box. Okay. Again, in Schedule tab, this is just, you just scroll down a bit further on the Schedule tab. Calculate project after each edit should be on. When we update anything in the project, Microsoft Project will do a forward and backward pass. Every time you make a change to your schedule, to your resources, Microsoft Project will recalculate the forward and backward pass. It'll tell you if you're over allocated, under allocated, and so on. So this is why you should have calculate project after each edit should be set to on. Then in the Save tab, same project options window, Save tab. My recommendation is to auto-save every 3 to 5 minutes. Now this might have been changed in recent versions of Microsoft Project, I don't know. But I can tell you that for 2010 at least, if you don't do this, Microsoft Project might crash. So to avoid this crash, you should auto-save every 3 to 5 minutes, or else you might lose your work, right? Now, you will get, if you do this, that means every 5 minutes you're going to get this pop-up box that says, do you want to save changes? And that's fine, it's annoying, but it's better to have this and save your work than to have everything crash, right? My other recommendation is to make a local copy to save your changes too. So don't work on a shared drive. If you work on a shared drive, again, it could crash or strange things can happen. So always work in a local copy. And you might want to have, like I said, you might actually want to have 2 copies of Microsoft Project, just in case something else happens to your original copy. So, what are our key takeaways for all these settings that we've looked into? It will calculate your hours per activity based on the number of days, the weeks, the months that you provided, which we've done in our WBS session. Based on the activity relationships that we provided, and this is going back to the network diagram. Microsoft Project will determine the start and end dates. It'll auto-schedule everything, right? Which is what you want. And none of these activity duration days will change unless Microsoft won't change them unless you tell Microsoft Project to change it. Right? Unless you change it yourself, Microsoft Project will not change it. And no matter how long a resource spends on an activity, it will not be changed unless you tell Microsoft Project to change it. So these are kind of important why we create the settings that we've done that I just went over. All right, now we need to create a base calendar, right? In order to schedule work to happen. You don't want to calculate your holidays in this base calendar. This is only for those activities that people will be doing work on. You will input your resources, and you will input the activities and the relationships of these resources with the calendar. Right? Okay, so how do we set up the base calendar? You go in Microsoft Project, you go to File, New, Create, New Project, or File, New, Create, New Project. I should have highlighted all of this blue. And then you go to your project tab, right? And you select Change Working Time. This is the Change Working Time button. And you should get the standard project calendar, should be the default, like you can see in the screenshot to the right at the upper part. So that should be the default, right? You might want to select the work weeks. Let me see if I can find just a minute here. Oh, yes. So this is the work weeks tab. And you want to click default and then details. And this details box, upper box should appear. And you can note that the days of the week here, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in the default, in the details box. You can shift and click to select Monday to Friday. And you want to select set days to these specific working times. You want to select that button. You can enter the days of your activities, 9 to 12, 12:30 to 5 p.m., like I showed in the example here. But it doesn't matter, like everybody will be taking lunchtime at a different time, right? But in this case, it's going to be what, 7.5 hours. So I just created the lunch hour here, 12 to 12:30. But it doesn't matter if you take lunch at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. It doesn't matter. But all you need is just show in the Microsoft Project database that 30 minutes is your break time. It doesn't matter what specific time that occurs. So like I said, people can take lunch at any time, right? And then you click OK, and you should be done. Okay. Now I have to get rid of this. Just a minute here. Now, on this base calendar, you click the Exceptions tab, which is here. And you can enter your holidays, stat holidays, right? These are the normal working holidays. If you do this, Microsoft Project will not calculate, it will not do any calculations for these specific days, right? Now, it should be noted that you could create different calendars for different contractors. You could assign each calendar, each of these different calendars, you can assign them to different activities. And Microsoft Project will only schedule activities on those specific days, right? So you could do it that way, or you could do it the way I'm showing you now. Oops, just over here. Okay, now here we want to set the project start date, right? So on your Microsoft Project ribbon, you know, the main ribbon, like you see in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Project, you go to the Project tab, select Project Information, which is like the button here, and then when this window pops up on the right, select Start Date, and this will be the start date of your project based on the network diagram that you did. In other words, this is the date that has no precedence. This might be activity A. There's no prerequisites. No activity will occur before this one. This is the date that you put down, the very, very first day of your project. On the ribbon, go to Microsoft Project ribbon, go to View tab, select Resource Sheet, and you can enter the details of the resources in your team. So, for example, this could include not just the work, but also the materials that you need. And you can see in this diagram that there is work, you know, $10 per hour, $10 per hour. Materials that you need, you know, how much those materials, in this case, $40,000 or $40,000. So you want to be able to enter the work, the percentage of the work that needs to be done here. This is the work for your team. Oops, I made an error here. Okay. All right, let's do this. So you want to input your resources in the Resource tab. And I mentioned that work here is units of time, you know, your hour, your rate per hour, and those who are doing the job. And it should be 100% availability for a 7.5-hour day or 8-hour day, right? And I mentioned here that you could do a separate calendar for days that there's no work, you know, like holidays, and you could assign that to an activity. And of course, also in this screenshot, there is materials, right? So the servers, all the equipment you're using, the costs, you can enter all this information in this Resource tab. Okay. Now there's a difference between who's responsible and your resource for the work, right? So remember when we did the work breakdown structure, we had groups. And in each group, you had one person representing the group. So these are people, the types of people who would be responsible. So only one person is responsible for an activity, right? But you might have many different resources working on that one activity. So here, you need to be able to create a custom field, right? So again, on this Microsoft Project ribbon, select, you click on Project tab, select Custom Fields, this Custom Fields button, and select Task Field, like I've shown here. This is the Task button here. And you've noticed here, there's Field 1. Oops, just over here. Just over here. This is Text 1. You want to select this one under Field. And then you want to click the Rename button. I'm having problems with my annotation here. Just a minute. Oh yeah, this is the Rename button here. This renamed field should pop up. And then you can type the word responsible in the name field, right? And then click OK, OK. Now we can track the one person who's responsible for this specific activity, right? Okay. Now, we're still on adding this custom field. So you want to make the responsible field a drop down, right? So again, on the ribbon, go to View tab, select Resource Sheet, and you'll see that that's right here. And then all these names from the resource sheet, all these names here in black, you want to copy them. So just highlight them, highlight the names in the resource, press Control-C to copy them. And these were the resources that you entered previously that I showed you on the previous screen, right? So you're highlighting them. Now, on the ribbon, go to Project tab, select Custom Fields, select Task, select Responsible, which is this one here. Click the Lookup button. This one here. And here we are in the lookup table, right? And you want to click row 1 of the value column. That's this one here. And just do Control-V to paste everything that you've copied. All your resources will be copied into this lookup table, just like that. So we're going to add a custom field. We're going to click row 1. In the value column. Oh, wait a minute. Just a minute. Yeah, so then you click close. This was just a repeat. Click close. So now we're going to add activities to the project schedule. Remember that big long piece of paper you used in your work breakdown structure to add all the activities? And you had everybody sign off on each activity with there were post-it notes that represented each activity. So this is the paper that you've saved. Now you need to unroll this big butcher paper. And you should have something looking like this, showing you the first activities up to the last activities, moving from the left to the right. So this should show you the order in which your project will move, right? So all these activities need to be inputted into Microsoft Project, and you need to manually do this. It takes some time, but it's better to do it this way now than it cause you problems later on. Okay. So now we need to be able to add activities to our project schedule, right? So you're going to go to the Task tab on the ribbon, click Gantt Chart, should look like this button here. So you should be able to right-click and hide the info and task mode columns. there's an option to do this. You should be able to right click and just select, you know, to hide your stuff like this. You want to click add new columns and select that responsible text one. First, remember that we just created this one, right? So this is going to show up as a column in your Gantt chart, your Gantt data, right? Okay, now you need to start entering the network information into Microsoft Project. So we're going to show you how to do this, right? So each activity, each of these yellow activities, like I said, that should have the name of the person who is responsible, the duration that each activity will take, the name of the activity, and so on. So what you need to do is, once you enter one activity into Microsoft Project, check it off. Once you do the next activity, check it off and check it off and check it off and so on. Always start with the first row, those that don't have any precedence, and then you move on to the next row and so on and so forth. Right? So remember that when we did this in the WBS, each activity was part of a larger bucket. Like we had level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And most of these projects will go up to level 3, 4, or 5. No more than level 5, right? But we had a level 2, like human resources department, maybe communications department, maybe IT department, something like this, right? Maybe marketing department, and so on. So you need to group your activities in each of these categories when you enter this into Microsoft Project. So you're going to enter an activity ID from Microsoft Project for each of these activities. Take that ID number and write it on this piece of paper for each of these activities. Enter the ID number, right? Okay. Now, when we're adding custom fields, you could have each of these activities, we all did them with the same color Post-it notes, but you could use different color Post-it notes to categorize them. You know, one color pink for marketing, one color blue for HR, one color red for IT. You know, you could do it that way. And this way, it might be easier for you to distinguish which group each of these activities belong to, right? Now, like I mentioned, it takes a while to enter all this information into Microsoft Project, but it's well worth it in the end. Okay, so on the Task tab on the ribbon, click Gantt Chart, this button. Click Details on the right side of the button. That's the Details button. Right-click in the gray area of the Details section and select Predecessors and Successors. You can see here that this is the one I'm talking about, predecessors and successors, right? Click Project Finish Activity. Input all the predecessors by ID number from your Post-it note diagram. So that means that in this section here, all this stuff, you're going to enter all your activities one by one by one. You could use this previous and next button here if you need to. And this is your project finish activity right here. And you need to go backwards from the last activity in your diagram all the way to the first activity. You have to enter them backwards. Okay, so you're finished when all those activities have predecessors and successors entered into the details section, right? So, for example, for this one here, this is the predecessor, right? For this one here, this is the successor, and so on, right? So all these items from F all the way up to the start, S, have to be entered. You're finished, you're starting backwards, right? All right, so once all these things are entered, right, you're going to be able to send all this information to your team to be able to validate it, right? So in the Gantt view of your project, you can drag columns to have the task name, your duration columns, your start, finish, your responsible columns. They're all shown here, right? So let me just, so this is your duration, this is your start, this is your finish, this is who's responsible for it, and so on. Now, in Microsoft Project 2010, you could just highlight this entire box of activities and you can paste it into Microsoft Excel. But in earlier versions of Microsoft Project, I think you have to, it only saves in HTML or something like this. Highlight it, save it as HTML, and then change the extension to XLS or something like that. There's a way to do it, but in versions 2010 or above, it's just copy and paste all this stuff into Excel. And you want to be able to create a report and send this to your team to validate, like I mentioned. So you want to auto fit your columns and rows in Excel. You can add your resources and your hours of effort. You can send this to your team as an email attachment. You know, have your team validate the duration and add any additional resources and hours of effort, right? So you notice in this screenshot, there's columns that are highlighted in yellow. These are the columns that you want your team to validate, right? Double check, make sure the durations are correct. Add any resources and the hours of effort. Those are the three columns that I've highlighted. It's up to you. You can highlight the ones that you need to have verified by your workers. Now we're going to update the schedule with any feedback from our team. So our team's going to update that Excel sheet. It's going to come back to us, and we're going to go back into Microsoft Project. Go to Gantt chart details, right click in the gray area, and select resources and predecessors. That's this one here. So when you right click, this little box comes up and then you just click resources and predecessors. Go through each of these activities. Uh-oh, what happened to my thing here? Just a minute. So now you're going to go through each of these activities that you've entered, right? And you might have to add resources and effort and hours in the work column. Remember, if all your workers have updated your Excel sheet, right? They've entered effort in hours, they've entered the resources. So you might have to come in and edit what you've entered, right? And Microsoft Project will calculate to see if your resources are over-calculated, or over-allocated or not, right? And if they are over-allocated, Microsoft will highlight those over-allocations, right? You might have to, in that Excel sheet, you might notice that you have a new resource that you have to add that you didn't think you had. You might have to shift the work out so the resource has enough time, this and that, right? So you might have to make some modifications. Like I mentioned, you have to add new resources, which you might be hearing about for the very first time, to your resource sheet and the responsible drop-down list, and that's okay. All right, now that we're finished with this section, right, it should all be saved. Now we need to create a baseline. And the reason for the baseline is to be able to, as we do work, as things change, you need to be able to compare to your baseline, to your first setup, and see if the work is being done properly, if you're following your schedule as planned. So we need to create this nice readable Gantt chart for a Microsoft project, right? We call this snapping baseline sometimes, right? So all your activities will be scheduled on a calendar. You will be able to publish the schedule and take a copy of what everything looks like at this moment today. And then you can all future activities you can compare back to this initial published schedule. Right? Okay, so on the ribbon, go to Project tab, click Set Baseline. This is the button. In the dialog box, you can choose Set Baseline and Entire Project. So that's this one here and this one here. And then click OK. All right, so we need to update the time scale. In the Gantt view, you're going to right-click the timestamp. Sorry, right-click the time scale. That should give you this box here. And then select time scale, right, from the box, from the drop-down menu. And we need to adjust the time scale and change the bar to see the baseline. So we have this choice for the time scale. So you'll notice bottom tier here, middle tier, and top tier in this time scale. I have bottom tier, middle tier, top tier in this box here. If you have your project is 1 to 3 months, or 3 to 12 months, or 12 months, you can determine if you're going to use months, weeks, days. If it's 12 months, are you going to use quarters or months, so on and so forth. So it's up to you how you want to set this up, but these are the settings that you can use. Okay, so Gantt bar formatting. So you want to right-click in the Gantt bar area, right? So you're going to get this drop-down menu. And you're going to select grid lines from that drop-down menu. And this grid lines pop-up box appears. And you have to set at intervals to 2. Every second activity is what it means. And you want to type this dotted line right here, select the dotted line. And then click OK. So that means that for every 2 activities, you should have a nice dotted line between them. This just makes things look nice. And Okay, so we need to bring this Gantt chart wizard to the main menu, right? So we're going to do File Options, Customize Ribbon, and you're going to choose all commands from the Choose Commands From box. Under Customize the Ribbon, you will choose Tool Tabs. That's this one. And Gantt Chart Tool, Gantt Chat. What was Gantt Chart? I don't know why I put Gantt Chat. You will choose Format. And that's this one here, under Gantt Chart Tools. I must have been sleepy when I wrote this. I missed the letter R. Anyway, and then you will click New Group. New Group, that's the New Group button here. Right? So under that New Group, you should have this rename pop-up box. And you will type the display name as Wizard. That's here, Wizard. Click OK. And under Gantt Chart Tools Formats, you should be able to select Wizard Custom. That's this one here. And under Commands, you will choose Gantt Chart Wizard, which is this one here. And you can click Add and click OK. That's the Add button. And you click OK. So that takes care of that. Then we have 2 minutes before we will get kicked out again. So let's bear with me here. Okay. Now, on the ribbon, you can click Format tab, click Gantt Chart Wizard button, click Next, and just keep following all these steps. And you click Next, Critical Path, Next, None, Next, No, Next, and Format it. And what all these settings mean is that all you're doing here is just setting up the critical path to show items on red bars, along the critical path. Eliminate any extra information, like your resource names, arrows, you can eliminate all that stuff. So that's what all these settings are about. Nice and quick settings without getting into too much detail about it. Okay, 1 minute, maybe I can do this. So we're gonna show the baseline on our project timeline. So right-click in the Gantt bar area again, select bar styles from the drop-down menu, scroll to the bottom of the list, and you want to add two items, right? You want to add baseline and milestone, like this is baseline here, and milestone here. Normal, milestone, baseline start, your row is 2, your row is 2. All these items that are here, you can enter all these here. Now, I think we're going to get disconnected, so I will just wait and let us disconnect and then come back. Is that okay? I hope. Jimmy, I hope, Prince? I think we have 1 minute, then we get disconnected.
Yes, we have 1 minute.